Alhamdulillah, salatu salam ala Rasulillah. Last night we completed Surah Al-Baqarah in our Taraweeh, and I have a few general observations that I would like to talk about in light of some of the verses which were recited. And halfway through the second juz, for example, there are many ayat which are related to divorce. And in particular, the issues that come up in this day and age are related more often than not to a person who divorces his wife three times in one sitting. Now, what is the ruling behind that? And what should we do if that ever takes place? So, first and foremost, there are a couple of hadith that I'd like to mention. One in which the Prophet ﷺ, he was asked by a person who had divorced his wife, and this is a riwayat of Ibn Majah, I believe, that he had divorced his wife three times, and the Prophet ﷺ became upset at him to the point that the Sahaba, they realized that he was upset, and one of the Sahabis, he stood up and said, "Should we not kill this person?" So this was in the situation where the Prophet ﷺ was asked specifically about three divorces. There's another riwayah in which Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala was approached by a person that had given his wife three divorces in one sitting, and then asked Ibn Abbas about the ruling relating to that. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala responded by saying that first and foremost, you engage in hamuqa. Hamuqa means foolishness. And then you come to Ibn Abbas and ask questions that what should you do? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا, that whoever has the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will make an exit for him, He will make a way for him. And the person who did this, he does not have taqwa. This is a saying of Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala. It's found in the collection of Abu Dawood, and it has been authenticated as Sahih by Hafiz ibn Hajar rahimahullah. So these kinds of riwayat were the basis upon which all of the four madhahib traditionally gave the opinion that if a person, he divorces his wife three times, then it's regarded as three divorces. And that's it. I mean, there is no way out for that person, and that divorce is final. Now, there is a very individual opinion of Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, who gave the opinion that three divorces in one sitting are regarded as one divorce. And it was based upon this opinion of Ibn Taymiyyah that he was actually sent to prison, and he languished in prison for a long time, and he died in prison because of this ruling. Now this, our respect for Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah should remain, and he had his daleels, he had his proofs for giving the ruling that he did. But the traditional ruling for three divorces in one sitting is that it is counted as three divorces. And the proof that some scholars give is a hadith that counters this, is a hadith in which one of the Sahaba came to the Prophet ﷺ. He had given his wife three divorces, and he was very upset at the fact that he let her go. The Prophet ﷺ asked him that, did you give this divorce, three divorces in one sitting? He said, yes, I gave three divorces in one sitting. So then the Prophet ﷺ gave the opinion that it was counted as one. Now this hadith, also narrated by Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, but it's classified as weak, and the status of this hadith is not as strong as the one that we've mentioned earlier on. So, in any case, one of the biggest issues of ignorance that are there in society are that people assume that they have to give 3 divorces. They assume that they have to give 3 divorces for the divorce to be valid. And this is not the case. There is actually a procedure for the divorce to take place. And there are rules and regulations for the divorce to take place. And those hadith that I mentioned to you earlier, they indicate that it is actually a sin to give 3 divorces in one sitting. Okay, it's a sin. It's haram to actually give 3 divorces in one sitting, and if he does it, it will obviously occur. But it's against the sunnah. It's known as talaq bid'ah when a person actually does it. So what is the actual procedure of divorcing? First and foremost, a person should not utter the divorce, even as a joke. There's a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ lists 3 things that when they're done jokingly or seriously, they are serious. ثَلَاثٌ جَدُّهُنَّ جَدٌّ وَهَزْلُهُنَّ جَدٌّ. There are 3 things that when they're done seriously, they're serious, and even if they're done as a joke, they are still serious. And one of them is divorce, and one of them is actually nikah ceremony, when a person, as a joke, he even accepts the proposal of a woman, and there are 2 witnesses there, and so on, and all of the requirements of nikah are being fulfilled, it will be counted as a nikah. And the third one is setting a slave free. You cannot joke about that also. So if you say to your slave, you're free, then that is counted as setting the slave free. And this was one of the things that Islam encouraged, the freeing of slaves. Getting back to the point, what is the methodology of divorcing in Islam? The first thing is that the divorce should take place in a period of during the month in which a woman, she became pure from her monthly cycle, and after purity there has been no intimacy between the husband and wife. Okay, so once the woman has finished from the menstruation, the menstrual cycle, after that the person finds out that she is clean from her menses, and then he will pronounce 1 divorce on her. Not 3, but 1 divorce. 1 divorce is sufficient for that woman to go out of his nikah. Okay. Now, what is the benefit of 1 divorce, and what is the purpose of only divorcing using 1 divorce? The reason behind it is that if within the 3-month period the person decides to reconcile, and actually to encourage reconciliation, the woman stays in the same household as the husband. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا تخرجوهن من بيوتكم. Do not take them out of your houses during this period. So this iddah, it has to be done in the same household, and the purpose of that iddah is to try to reconcile between them. So if the husband decides that he's going to take her back, then any show of intimacy, any romantic touching and hugging, even he doesn't have to verbally say, I'm taking you back, it is sufficient for that divorce to be revoked, and now she is back in his marriage. Keeping in mind that 1 divorce has been used, and there are only 2 more opportunities to use divorce again. That 1 divorce, even though it's been revoked, it has already been used. So this is actually the method of divorcing. Okay, so again, to recap, after the woman has finished her cycle, the husband and wife, they will ideally bring 2 witnesses. Now, some people say that if you don't have 2 witnesses, the divorce is not valid. No, it's valid. Even without witnesses, the divorce is still valid. Okay, so a person should not think, okay, there's no witnesses, so therefore I can say whatever I like, or I can divorce her and it's not going to be valid. No, the divorce is valid without two witnesses. So, but ideally, you should have two witnesses so that it's recorded and everybody knows what took place, and the people who are there, they can come forward and they can testify that yes, the words of divorce were pronounced, this is what was said, and the divorce is valid. And then a person will pronounce one divorce upon his wife, and if in that period of 3 months reconciliation does not take place, then she is now out of his nikah. Now again, the second benefit of only pronouncing one divorce is that even after that period of 3 months, if they want to reconcile and they want to get back together again, they can actually perform a nikah ceremony and get back together again. Why? Because only one divorce was pronounced. Okay, so this is something that it's very important for everyone to understand, that it's not something that should be taken lightly, and 3 divorces should not be pronounced in one sitting. One divorce is sufficient, and it's ignorance to think that I have to give 3 divorces for the divorce to be valid. There are so many different scenarios and situations that I could tell you about that I've come across in my life that people are asked questions about, but the main issue is this issue of 3 divorces. Now, there are so many other things related to divorce. إمساك بمعروف أو تسريح بإحسان. The one thing that people engage in, it's psychological torture to their wives. Okay, they don't keep them as wives, meaning that they don't deal with them as wives. There's no intimacy, there's no fulfilling of financial rights, there's no fulfilling of conjugal rights, and yet they claim that, you know, this is my wife. So the wife is just there by name. Otherwise, nothing is in that marriage, in that relationship, that indicates that this is a husband and wife or marital relationship. So in this situation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَمْسِكُوهُنَّ بِمَعْرُوفٍ أَوْ سَرِحُوهُنَّ بِمَعْرُوفٍ. Either keep them in with ma'ruf, in a good way, or let them go in a good way. Okay, don't just keep them mu'allaqa. Mu'allaqa means just hanging with no relationship. She cannot move on with her life. She cannot get remarried. And you also keeping her and basically torturing her, and you are marrying another wife because it's permissible for you to do so while she's being tortured mentally and psychologically. So, you know, this is another aspect, and then there are so many other things that we could talk about. It's not something that can be done in a 10-minute lecture or khatira. But the main thing, the bottom line, is that when it comes to these kinds of relationships and these kinds of issues, we need to be educated. We need to be taught what is the right thing to do in a particular situation. If we haven't learned ourselves, then we need to go to scholars and ask them what is the ruling behind those issues, what should we be doing in those certain situations, and we need to get the Islamic perspective before making any type of decision. So these were certain points that I wanted to point out, and I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us tawfiq to deal with our wives and our spouses in a way that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is in line with the sunnah of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us tawfiq to understand and practice what has been said and heard. Jazakumullahu khairan.